Okay, so the last topic is what do you think the most like stable, optimal, realistic, whatever word you want to use, solution is on like a policy level. Let's try to focus on, the things that Israel can do, the things that Palestine can do, how the state would be situated, or the two states should be situated. If they're gonna be in any alliances to assure that they don't go to war again. You could talk about, if you're like really into maps, you can talk about how the map would be set up. Anything like that. Try to focus on like those big, wide-ranging policy ideas rather than anything on the ground, anything that's going on right now. Just kind of philosophize and try to pretend like we're working towards something pretend like there's gonna be progress made sometime soon. Talk about what you think the most like stable progress would be. Okay, we're gonna keep our order. We're gonna go Noah, Olivia, Oliver, and yeah, go. Let's go.
Okay, I'll just go quick. I think I've said this already many times. I think a two-state solution is the obvious only way this can work, and that requires Israel completely withdrawing every single Israeli citizen from the West Bank forcibly, and it requires Gazans to stop continuously firing rockets at Israel. I think that is only going to happen if the Likud is not in power in Israel and Hamas is not in power in Gaza. Once, if those two power structures can be removed, then I think there can be a two-state solution with the Gaza Strip and the West Bank as a Palestinian state, Israel proper as a Israeli state. I'm happy to talk how borders work, the United Nations partition plan, all the way back then. That would be great borders. I know there's been some argument over Oslo Accords, but there's additional borders we can talk about. But that's my general idea of what a solution would be for both parties.
Okay. Policy-wise, I agree. We should pull out of the West Bank. I think that everyone have the same rights in that entire landmass, whether it be Palestine or Gaza or the West Bank or Israel, whatever you guys want to call it. Like, the real solution would be just to give everyone there equal rights to that land. I don't see any reason Palestinians don't deserve the rights to the land that they lost during the Nakba, and I also don't see why Israelis currently living in Israel that have had nothing to do with like federal colonial violence, I don't see why they should have to leave, right? But I do very much see the need to break down the barriers, so to speak, between the two populations. And I just don't think that could ever work with a two-state solution, because all it does is further reinforce borders and barriers and like buying into like your nationalist identity. I think if a two-state solution were to be taken seriously, obviously you would have to get rid of like the Likud party and Bibi and all of his pals. I also think that the two-state solution, for that to even, be considered a possibility, I think people need to start giving Palestine the same rights when they talk about two-state solutions, because I constantly hear people talking about de-arming Palestine and the Palestinian state when it comes to a two-state solution, which makes absolutely no sense. If you're a state, you have all of the rights that being a state confers. And I think there needs to be some sort of policy to help humanize the Palestinians. It's insane how little interaction with Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza that Israelis have.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's very easy to like hate and to demonize entire populations if you just never really interact with them. And so I think there has to be some sort of like, I'll compare it to birthright trips. Like there has to be some sort of way for you to really go in and interact with both of those areas if you are not from there,
Mm-hmm.
Like there's,
Mm-hmm.
you just need open communication.
All right, Oliver.
Well, I especially agree with that last part. I don't know if you guys follow the Saluki on YouTube, but man, he's great.
One more time, who?
The Saluki. He's an Israeli dude. He's an Iraqi Jew, but he visited the West Bank in the middle of this war. He had to sneak in and pretend he wasn't Israeli, but like, yeah, talked to some people, had some very normal interactions. Like, it's just a really great video. Really, really hopeful. I agree that call me crazy. Somehow, I don't think that Hamas or Likud could be in power for either a 2 or 1 state solution. Like, I don't think that either of them tend to act in good faith or have done anything. I mean, maybe Hamas has brought some stuff to the table, but, has brought things to everyone's attention. But, beyond that, it's done nothing but sabotage peace.
Yeah, they're certainly not the people you want leading a country. And this is almost always certain case. Like,
yeah.
The people most effective during like wartime and aggressions and like situations like this are not really the people that you want leading in times of peace.
Oh no,
Never want warmongers leading.
Absolutely, and they're not the people that Israel should have been legitimizing this entire time either. I mean, Absolutely. Like you're saying, it's, I don't know, on some level I kind of feel like it may or may not be a moot point at this exact moment, but yeah, and Hamas should have never had this much legitimacy in the first place, and it's a ridiculous statement to say that they should. You know what I'm saying, right? Like, Israel, by pigeonholing the PA, I mean, come on.
They gave them so much undeserved authority. Yeah, like Hamas should never have made it to this point.
Exactly. It's just like, really? Yeah. Oh man, it's just ridiculous. I agree. There need to be more conversations between Israelis and Palestinians. I have a hard time believing that this insane cycle of bullshit will not continue to happen if there is not separation. I do think that on some level there needs to be separation. I mean, even if, let's just say, for example, there were just to be magically a 2-state solution, or sorry, a 1-state solution, I think that Israelis might use their outsized economic power to buy up land in the West Bank at way too fast of a rate. And not like, obviously the mixing would be great if it were to be genuine mixing, not land grabbing. But I think it would equate to land grabbing. I do think that there is too much hate. I think there would be a lot of political problems. You referenced the Balkans. You referenced the collapse of Yugoslavia, and that's exactly what I fear. I fear that actually a serious attempt at death squads on both sides would be attempted in the event of a 1-state solution, and like real death squads just going door to door. Like, that's what I fear in the event of a 1-state solution. I think that maybe in some ideal future this could all be a 1-state solution. I don't think that will ever happen before there's a 2-state solution. I think there needs to be a 2-state solution just for everyone to chill the hell out. If we're talking about borders, I guess, obviously Palestine should keep all of Gaza, the vast majority of the West Bank. There's a couple tiny areas that Israel has just, I mean, I shouldn't even say tiny, like, there is a sizable portion of the West Bank right on the border with Israel that Israel would probably just annex in the event of this solution. Hopefully that amount wouldn't be too much. It's hard to imagine that Israel wouldn't annex some of it on the border. There would need to be a highway or something under Palestinian control between Gaza and the West Bank. Again, if we're just talking about maps, and I think it's also very obvious that in the long run, Palestine would need sovereignty over its border with Jordan, and over import and export. And I'm not saying that this could all just happen immediately. I think this would be a slow process. In fact, I think it would be incredibly irresponsible and acting in bad faith on Israel's part to just implement this all immediately. I think that would, with how fraught things are right now, I think that would inevitably go bad. But I think moving in that direction and with the real, true, honest goal of actually getting there is the only way to do this. I mean, the way that, if we want to go back to what's kept Israel safe, right? I forget what the doctrine is called, but the overwhelming force doctrine. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll finish this up quickly. That kind of deterrence, it only works against states that have something to lose, right? Like, it doesn't work against Palestinians because they have nothing to lose. They're desperate. Like, it's horrible. I mean, I think that Israel would be way more secure if Palestine had a state, because all of a sudden, like, if you were Hamas and you had, maybe not Hamas, but if you were, if you were like Fatah, right? Or a more legitimate Palestinian government, and you had the vast majority of the West Bank, all of Gaza. I know we can't even begin to talk about Jerusalem in this. That's a whole other thing that we can get into. Dear God, that's a complicated topic. But you wouldn't just, because you'd have something to lose. It would be batshit crazy, So it would be Israeli security. Yeah. Anyways, I'm sorry. That dragged on.
I'm gonna.
Noah, do you have a response?
I'm gonna go real quick, or like I'm gonna give an intro to just an intro for this topic, just to give people a little bit more to talk about, because it seems like everyone's has very similar responses, which is probably good. I think even if you want a one-state solution, you got to do a two-state solution first. You can't just smash these two populations into each other. So that's not going to turn out well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, like, obviously, like, I think everyone here believes that, like, if we can get everyone there to hold hands and sing Kumbaya, like, that's the best thing that could happen, right? If we could all snap our fingers, that's what we would do.
Oh, yeah.
But we have to take the first step first, which would be a two-state solution. I think that in the two-state solution, I think it's going to be a pain in the ass to get Turkey to do this, because Turkey's always a pain in the ass. But if you can put them both in NATO, that'd be super great, because then they literally can't attack each other anymore. But that's like a big hope, right? I think having a lot of international mediators, it would be super good. That they can't. I don't like to say it like this, but I don't believe these two populations, or at least their governments, can be trusted to not attack each other. We've seen over the years. It's I like to describe the situation as a chicken and the egg of fuckery. Okay, it's just, no matter, like, I understand that, like, Israel has more power and so they can do worse shit, but it's usually in response to some also dumb shit that some Palestinian government or some Palestinian terrorist organization does, which is also not acceptable. So having an international mediator there to keep the peace would be super helpful, because I understand why Palestine doesn't trust Israel, and to some degree I understand why Israel is nervous around the Palestinian population that they've radicalized for 75 years. So I think that's a super important. Let's see. I think the right of return. Both populations have this crazy right of return. There's like that they're asking for. Israel's right of return. I can't say the exact joke I have on stream.
Oh no!
But
I know the quote.
anybody who's touched Jewish DNA, okay, Israel wants them back and wants them to be come to Israel, okay. And on the flip side, Palestinians are the only like population in the world, it seems, that your adopted son's adopted son, if you were originally a refugee, is also a refugee. That doesn't work. That doesn't work like functionally. So both of them are going to have to give up some level of right of return. What that looks like, I'm not educated enough to figure out. But yeah, we can't let every Jew on Earth and every Palestinian, every descendant of a Palestinian refugee on Earth back into that area. It's not going to work. There's just the area it won't support that many people of an influx as soon as we have a one-state solution.
I would like to. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I think that's my whole thing though.
Okay. Can I jump in really quick before you go?
I also have a small caveat. Yeah, we'll go for it.
I think there is absolutely no path whatsoever to a one-state solution. It should be always opposed. It has to be a two-state solution. There can be no one-state solution because there's two ethnic groups that have ethnic ties to that area. They both are deserving of self-determination. And saying that there's going to be one state does not allow self-determination for all. There's only one country on planet Earth.
I feel like you're contradicting yourself. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Why can both of those ethnicities not lay claim to the land?
They both can.
What is the problem there?
They both deserve their own state. You can't say they can be one state because at that point you remove the only place on planet Earth where Jews can be safe from anti-Semitism. There's no other,
That's extremely racist.
It's not.
Extremely racist to say. I'm so sorry, but that is the most.
Okay, hold on. Let me finish my position. I've let you say all of your positions, then you can go. Essentially, every country on planet Earth has significant issues with anti-Semitism. There's no other place where there's a ethnic Jewish majority other than Israel, and so there needs to be a place for Palestinians to have self-determination in Palestine, in their state of Palestine, and Israelis to have self-determination in the state of Israel. And that cannot be achieved if it's one country. But there can be two countries, and there are various plans for two states. I'm open to different arguments of how the two states could work and what the borders are. But there has to be two different states, and Israel has to be allowed to allow ethnic Jews that have ethnic ties to the region to come back.
Just to be super clear, because I think that there is some confusion on what your point was. It's not that Palestinians are necessarily particularly anti-Semitic. It's that historically, fucking everyone has been anti-Semitic at some point.
Every country on planet Earth.
Okay.
Even in the United States.
That's not even what I take an issue with. I honestly think that saying that the only place that Jews can be safe is in Israel, and only because that is the place where they are the majority of the population, that is incredibly racist. Okay? The fact that you even can claim that there is no other safe place for Jews is insane. Okay? If America is not a safe place for Jews, we should analyze that right here and right fucking now, because that is extremely relevant to what we're talking about. Everywhere in the world is fucking anti-Semitic. Israel is also anti-Semitic. Okay? The Israelis that oppose what is going on right now are being attacked just as viciously as the Palestinians are. You know, like it's extremely anti-Semitic to equate Israel, the country, and Israel, like their government. It's racist to equate the actions of Israel, right, to the beliefs of all Jews. It's extremely racist. That is anti-Semitic. And it's anti-Semitic against Jews. You know, Israel is using Judaism as an excuse to commit the atrocities that they have. There are plenty of Jewish voices out there, you know, that have argued that Israel does not represent them. Israel is not safe for Jews. Israel is safe for Zionists. Israel is safe for people that toe the party line. And so I think you're starting off from an extremely faulty argument there, because Israel is not safe for Jews. Israel is not a country that is going to be safe for Jews just because Jews are the majority of the population. And respectfully, if you need to argue that as soon as a population is a minority in a place that they're going to have their rights trampled on, then that's all the more reason to argue for a one-state solution.
Whoa.
Hold on. I'm gonna cut in. Okay.
Wait. Actually, I'm gonna cut in on 2 points before.
Okay.
The one. I had one tiny caveat I wanted to add, which is that with the refugee thing, yeah, fair. This is the only place that people have been considered refugees for 75 years. Also, they still don't have a state, so I think, if they have a state, then yeah, let's stop calling them refugees, definitely. But until they have a state, I guess that's kind of my one thing where I'm like, a bit of a fair point,
Yeah, my argument was if it's going to be a one-state solution, we have to figure out that logistically we can't have every refugee in, but if it's a two-state solution, Palestine, if it's two states, Palestine can choose to do whatever it wants. If at that point,
that is a risk that they would compete on how many
that's
people they could.
I think I think that if you're a fourth generation immigrant, I think you should just be able to be a citizen of whatever country you live in, whatever country your parent and their parents were born in. Okay, I think it's ridiculous to not give you citizenship or at least permanent residency or wherever they do in one of the stupid European countries that don't have birthright citizenship. I'm gonna challenge Olivia a little bit. I don't agree with Noah that there needs to be this safe refuge for Jews. I think I understand that there's anti-Semitism, but that really hasn't stopped people from attacking the country with majority Jews. So there's plenty of there are normal, most Palestinians are normal, but there's plenty of anti-Semitic groups that attack Israel all the time. So it doesn't really seem to be protecting them, right? But I'm not understanding how he's racist for saying that. I think it's fear mongering, but I'm not making the connection.
Okay. So
okay. Let me respond.
They're a little hard to talk about. Sorry, go ahead.
Let me respond because Olivia went last before down, and then I'll give Olivia all the time she wants. But no, I'm not equating Jews to the government of Israel. The government of Israel does not represent all Jews. The government of Israel is a parliamentary system. There's all kinds of ideologies represented. There's Jews represented. There's Christians. There's Islam represented in the Israeli government. It's not a only Jewish government, and it doesn't represent Jews. But it is the only state on planet Earth where there is a majority of ethnic Jews, and I don't think that reduces Palestinians' right to their own state as well. They absolutely deserve self-determination, but so do ethnic Jews with ties to the land deserve self-determination as well. And it's not racist, it's not anti-Semitic to acknowledge that there are significant anti-Semitism problems all over planet Earth, and Jews need to be able to have a place where they can be free of that within their state. Yeah, sure, they're attacked, like Davin says, but the overwhelming vast majority of Jewish people support some form of a state of Israel, not necessarily domination of the entire region, because that's wrong, but there's some form of support in the vast majority of Jewish people for an Israeli state that also recognizes a Palestinian state.
Okay, so I don't understand your point. Why does there need to be a state that is where the majority of them are Jewish for them to be safe there? Why is that an important thing to have? Especially because no one was stopping Jews from moving into the land. What's happening is we are stopping Palestinians from keeping claim to that same land. Fine. If you say you have ties and this is your homeland, go ahead and go back to it. Why does that involve denying those same land rights to populations that were already there? I don't understand. There is no need for a Jewish state for them to feel safe. It's just the rest of the world conceptualized Israel because it was so fucking anti-Semitic, right? We did not want the Jews in Europe, and we did not want them in America. We wanted them over there.
Problem. Yeah.
No,
Let's make them their problem. That's extremely racist.
No,
okay, I view this twofold, but anyways, what were you gonna say?
Jewish people did flee many places of the world because of extreme anti-Semitism, but it's not because Russia, for example, where a ton of Jewish people came from, or Ashkenazi Jews came from, or Yemen, where a bunch of Mizrahi Jews came from. It wasn't because those countries...
Yemeni Jews are Yemenite Jews, which is technically different from Mizrahi, but please continue.
The ethnic ties are very close. Very, very close.
Yeah.
But those states didn't pick them up and then put them into an Israeli state. Jews fled those regions, fleeing pogroms, fleeing persecution, and they tried to go many places, and Israel was one of them. And that's absolutely correct, Davin. That is 100% correct.
Palestine was one of them.
Hold on, I'm not understanding. So, I mean, that's like, okay, hold on. A pogrom is where you're kicked out of your home for being Jewish and just sent anywhere else. Just get out of here. So yeah. They kind of were. Yeah, they were kicked out of their homes. Yeah.
Also, I could talk about how my buddy's Yemenite family was, chased around Yemen in the 1920s and then eventually, booted later on to what later became Israel, or to what was already Israel, I should say. Or I could talk about how I have a Mizrahi friend who, her family was kicked out of Iran. Then they were kicked out of they were kicked out of Iraq. Then they were kicked out of Iran. They eventually landed in Israel and the U.S. So, I don't know. Or we could talk about the Ashkenazi Holocaust. I mean, historically, this is true. Also, historically, the U.S. has been the safest place for Jews, where we have been a minority, but have been kind of inducted into white people or whatever. I mean, I guess my question is this, right? At some point, I look at the way that Palestinians are treated in various countries, for example, in Syria or in Lebanon, where they really don't have full rights. And it's like, I don't see how they could feel safe if they were the minority in a Jewish state, or how they could feel safe as a minority in these other states that are not of their nationality. I think that on one hand, Israel being the only safe place for Jews in the Middle East has been, on some level it's been true, and on some level it's been a self-fulfilling prophecy. The reason why I would argue that it makes sense for it to continue to exist, it's already here, and it just comes back to, I don't think it makes sense to try to risk turning Israel Palestine into Yugoslavia. And in the long run, people need to meet each other and break bread and learn that they're just human. And maybe in the super long run, we'll all become one giant mono-ethnicity and whatever. But, in the medium term, I don't actually see an alternative.
Yeah, I would say...
Absolutely.
I would say, regardless of how you feel about if there should eventually be a one-state solution, immediately it needs to be a two-state solution until these populations can be de-radicalized. Because right now, they are incredibly radicalized. They are some of the most radical populations on Earth towards each other, right? Up there with, North and South Korea, right?
Yeah.
I don't see
and
a
at least
path.
Koreans believe they're the same people, whereas Israelis and Palestinians, who all have Middle Eastern roots, view each other as somehow different.
Well, you're talking about people who have been oppressed for 75 years, right? Versus descendants of people who, as a result of some people they don't know kicking out their ancestors, in response to the Nakba, Okay, all of the other like states in the Levant were like, all right, cool, all the Jews can peace out, they can all leave, and then that created that's the worst.
Cycle of fuckery.
Yeah, the cycle that started the cycle. You know, the Nakba started the cycle of fuckery, and in almost a Looney Tunes fashion, okay, all the Levant states took the bait, and created the most radical population of Israel that could possibly exist.
I mean, it's more than clear the Arab world has largely associated Jews with Israel. Every conflict between Israel and the Arab League, or individual Arab countries, or Palestinians, has resulted in Jewish populations in unrelated from Israel, other than ethnic ties, but not wanting it to do anything with Israel. They have been persecuted and kicked out every time a conflict happens. They get blamed for it. And I don't see any path where you avoid extreme anti-Semitism against Jewish people all over the world. It doesn't matter where. And so that's why I think there needs to be a Palestinian state and an Israeli state, and they both deserve self-determination.
Yeah, that's why I think that like it should be backed internationally, and if they decide to reunify eventually, then they can decide to reunify, right? But like, yeah, like right now their breakup is permanent, is semi-permanent right now. Okay.
Yeah. It's funny that I get called anti-Semitic when, I mean, that's the view of the overwhelming vast majority of Jewish people who suffer from anti-Semitism. They believe that there needs to be a state for them, and not at the expense of a Palestinian state, but some form of a Israeli state. And to say that, well, almost every single Jew is an anti-Semite for having that position, I think is absolutely ridiculous.
I just don't agree with you. I think that like that was a legitimate fear, you know, post-Holocaust, right? And I think we've gotten to the point where like I don't, you know, there is anti-Semitism, but it's not like endemic and structural like it historically had been, right?
I think in the West that's true. I wouldn't say it's the same in the Middle East.
It's pretty horrible in a lot of the West. It really is.
No, we're doing fine in the West. Yeah.
I don't think it's fine.
I mean, it's not fine. Okay, racism is not fine. Obviously. Okay.
No,
but like,
you know what I mean. Like we're not. I don't think we're systemically oppressed in the West, right?
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the West, like, you know, except for the really racist pockets of the United States, like, view Jews as white, even though they're not white, right? Even though they're at most biracial, right? They're becoming, you know, very quickly like integrated into like the majority race or whatever in the United States. I think that.
I mean,
also a lot of Ashkenazi in the USA are mixed European and Ashkenazi, so there's that too.
I think it's more than clear that Jews in the United States and other countries are being singled out and attacked out of frustration for Israel's actions, and that just goes to show that when people see a Jew,
clear. I think that's one thing I'd like to request evidence that you provide.
Okay.
I don't think that's clear.
Well, hold on. Are we talking systemic?
I think anti-Semitism and Islamophobia both on the rise. Anti-Arab sentiment on the rise.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
All of that I agree with, but I just, I feel like Israel is contributing to that more than we may realize.
Yeah, I
agree.
Yeah.
Which is exactly why I say, like, you should not equate Jews to Israel. Israel does not deserve to speak for Judaism or any sort of Jews. They speak for Israel, and Israel is.
But people attack Jews in this very country because of what Israel does.
Right, but people attacked Chinese people in this country during the pandemic. Like, everyone's going to get attacked. People attack white people all the time for dumb shit. Okay,
there's always bad actors.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there's always bad actors. But the main reason Israel is being criticized is not because the majority of the voices are anti-Semitic. right? It's because Israel deserves criticism.
I agree.
People
I agree.
using that shit.
I'm not talking about criticism.
anti-Semitism.
I do think that the left needs to do a better job when, let's say, some guy at a anti-Israel rally, okay, is in the background holding up a Nazi symbol, okay, maybe because that guy shouldn't be there, okay, I think the left in general has a problem criticizing, I would say, when like leftist causes have bad actors in them, or however you want to say it, right? Like these pro-Palestine rallies you don't need to show Nazi symbols, okay, at these leftist rallies.
Yeah, and you don't need the anti-Semites among you. You know, don't break bread with people that are only in the cause for violence.
Yeah, I do definitely think that they're like people that are pro-Palestine, okay, me included, right? That I'm included in that group, but I feel like a lot of these people are willing to almost like, okay, well, they agree with, like, they're on my team, so I'm not going to turn around and be like, okay, like, why? No, this is about, like, not having apartheid, not having, war crimes. This isn't about, like, hating on Jews. Like, why are you here? Like, go away.
Okay, well,
yeah, away is essential.
I think it's just ironic that, Jews absolutely face the most per capita hate crimes in the United States of any group.
Is that true?
Wait,
that is true. But regardless, even if that wasn't true, I mean, this idea that, like, oh well, Chinese people faced racism, and to like hand wave that this isn't that this is a unique issue, and it is unique because Jewish people are held to a different standard. When there was racism towards Chinese Americans because of the pandemic, the response wasn't, what has China done to invite criticism? No, it was like, this has to be condemned immediately. It's wrong, and this needs to be righted. And so when I bring up the obscene violence against Jewish Americans, the response from Olivia is, oh, well, Israel has invited criticism. I mean, come on.
Okay.
I don't understand your point here, because I said that Israel does not represent Jews. And it sounds like you just said the opposite.
Hold on. Can we hold on? I'm going to break down these stats. I'm pulling out the stats on Noah here. Okay. What year was this number taken? Can I so I can try to find it, cuz this one was in 2022. More than 3 times the second group was anti-black or African American. The number 2 is anti-white, which, since Jewish isn't on here, I'm assuming Jewish is included in the anti-white statistic, right? And then, yeah. So it went from 3,421 to is the anti-black, 966 is the anti-white. So, assuming every single one of those is anti-Semitic, they are second, but second place when the first place is more than 3 times the second place is kind of interesting.
Okay, I'm not sure where your numbers are coming from. I know the FBI has published hate crime numbers and from 2022, and the anti-Jewish hate crimes are by far in first, by far per capita. It's not even close.
Noah, can I say something?
Sure.
I feel like we're in agreement, but we're talking past each other here. Because I am literally saying Israel does not speak for Jews. Okay? Israel is a rogue entity that is massacring innocent civilians, right? Israel is doing that. Israel is the oppressor. I've never said that about Jewish people. Plenty of bad actors are turning around and using that as a case for their anti-Semitism. So, I'm not arguing that it's on the rise. Just like anti-Arab hate crimes are on the rise. Because the same bad actors, are just jumping on the bandwagon to practice their hate. Those people are not my allies. I condemn anti-Semitism. I am not an anti-Semite. I am a Semite. But even if I were not, you know? Anti-Semitism, because what the state of Israel is doing is wrong. But that doesn't mean you can use the label anti-Semite to talk about anyone that is legitimately.
I don't think he is.
The main person to use the term anti-Semitism against other debaters has been you using it against other debaters. So I don't think it's really fair.
She can't hear you.
Hang on. I'm sorry. I couldn't hear you. So I need you to rewind. And I didn't mean you as in like you, but I do think that that is a thing that is happening. You know, and it's. Sorry, go ahead, since I basically cut off and like missed half the stuff. But not you, but like that is something that people are doing.
Okay, that's fair. I just think when I'm talking about violence towards Jewish Americans, I'm not. It has nothing to do with me saying that's associated with Israel. But the point I'm making is other people associate Jewish Americans with Israel simply because they're Jews, and that happens in every other country on planet Earth. And that's a problem when the response to that is when talking about that violence is to then say the response is, oh well, Israel's invited has invited criticism, when I don't think that's the proper response to any form of racism within the United States or anything.
To reality, okay? All right. Okay, that's not what Olivia was saying. That's not what I was saying. And that's not what Oliver was saying. Okay.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, that's what you were receiving. That's not what we were trying to communicate with you. I looked up the statistics. Okay, I finally found your statistic. It's the highest religious-based hate crime, but it is not even close to the highest hate crime. It's still less than 3 times. Okay, like it's more than 3 times less the amount of African American hate crimes, and it's marginally more than white hate crimes. I'm looking at the FBI, the justice.gov.
I don't know if you're looking at per capita statistics, but I'm referring to per capita statistics. That includes all kinds of hate crimes, religious and non-religious. There are far more African Americans than Jewish Americans.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, they're probably They probably have the highest hate crime in like a synagogue too. Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
I'm just messing with you now.
To make the argument that we shouldn't look at per capita statistics is nonsense.
Okay,
No. Yeah, it's just so hard to find this.
Why are we still talking about this?
No, I think this is really important actually, because like I feel like right now the disagreement between me and Noah is so interesting because we're both against the rise of anti-Semitism, but I truly believe that the longer we let Israel tend to have the authority over Jews and like what they think, like I think it's just always going to contribute to the rise of anti-Semitism. Like I feel like you're starting from the position of like a Jewish state makes them safer, and I'm starting from the position of like if you're claiming that this is a Jewish state, then I mean, one, it's not, but two, it's inviting those criticisms because it's not a Jewish state. I think it breaks my heart, that that we are associating this one landmass with a place that we can keep Jewish people safe. You know what I mean? And like, that's the problem. Jews are only ever considered citizens of Israel and not the rest of the world. And so like, what Israel does so heavily affects them. So, like, that's not supposed to be the case. And it's why like this idea of a Jewish ethno-state makes no sense to me. It's just, it keeps like sounding like, well, they belong there, that's their country, everything they do like is like a hive mind, essentially. It doesn't make sense if you're trying to build a Jewish state.
I think there are problems either way. Like, I think that, like, yeah, like, having a Jewish state, especially one that has such a great history of being super fair all the time, invites anti-Semitism in the same way that, like, not having one can, like, lead you open to anti-Semitism. And it's really a matter of, like, have we as a world progressed to the point where, like, which one is going to be worse, right? Is it the Jewish state stoking anti-Semitism, or is it the, like, innate anti-Semitism driving people to need to form a Jewish state? And I think that I feel like the Jewish, again, we don't live in the multiverse where Israel behaved perfectly since its inception, so I can't know if that would have made it better, but we live in this one. We live in this multiverse. So I feel like it does stoke more anti-Semitism to have a Zionist state like this, rather than, it being like a secular state that, in the same way that, like, majority of US is Christian, but if anyone wants to come here, like, we're never, it's not a problem,
I mean,
right?
This gets into the complexities of it being an ethno-religion, where you can have ethnic Jews and secular Jews, and they are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
Or, sorry, ethnic Jews and religious Jews, and they are not mutually exclusive.
But Oliver, the vast majority of Jewish people are ethnic Jews. The overall majority. There's not a conversion religion.
That's true.
Yeah.
There's
almost every single Jewish person.
There's a lot of secular Jews who are ethnic Jews, but there's very, very few, very, very few Jews who are, like, religious Jews who are not ethnic Jews. That is true.
There has been a need for a place in the world where Jews can be free of anti-Semitism since the diaspora from Judea and Israel. There's been just continual anti-Semitism all throughout the world ever since then, and that's never changed. It was never changed before the existence of modern day Israel and after. And yes, absolutely correct.
I think that they dug their own grave with that one. I think that the Nakba really, like, temporarily, honestly, after the Holocaust and then after the Nakba, yeah, I do believe at that point there needed to be a Jewish state, because people really were not big fans.
Long before that, too. Long before that.
Right. But I mean, like, when they were establishing it, right?
Yeah.
So, oh, sorry.
I mean, so who do you think has most of the blame for the Nakba? I
feel like, is this a trick question?
Israel?
I'm just curious because, like, the largest campaign to have Palestinians leave that land was the Arab League.
No.
Okay, I can go over facts and figures if you want.
Please go over.
The Israeli War of Independence / the Nakba, the 1948 war, whatever the fuck you want to call it. All right, so Britain has a partition plan, right? As their mandate on, Palestine is ending. Okay, pass it off, and yes, it was partly envisioned by also Herzl and blah 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 blah, Jewish colonialists. Yes, okay. They say, all right, here's the partition plan. Jews say, yes, we agree to it, because of course they did, right? And all the Arab states say no, because of course they did, because who are these people who are, firing all the Arab employees and suddenly buying up all the land? And, a lot of them have been in Europe for, like, over 1,000 years. Like, what are they all doing here? Okay, so it's weird, because on one hand, yeah, like, the Holocaust had just happened, so, and Zionism had been kind of a fringe idea for Jews right up until after that, and even then it was still kind of a fringe idea. And honestly, I don't know, if everyone is saying, all right, we're all attacking you, or a bunch of states, I don't see how you don't fear another genocide. But the flip side, of course, is that while Israel was establishing its independence, it committed, I believe the recorded number is 24 massacres. And okay, like, let's see. So the reason Palestinians left, right, like the pre-1967 borders, it's a combination of reasons, right? Like, yeah,
That's fair.
some people were asked to leave by the Arab armies, right, and say, hey, come back when we're done with this war. Some people left because it's a war. You don't want to be around for it. It's a shit show. Some people were massacred. Again, 24 recorded massacres. Some people feared the massacres and left because they heard of the massacres. And more people still were forcibly displaced. Some people far less than peacefully, like, obviously people are going to resist being kicked out of their towns. And, they were killed for it.
Can I just interrupt really fast here? Because I feel like I got kicked off for a second there. Yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit more context because massacre doesn't really feel like it's doing it justice. Entire villages were slaughtered. Yep. Every single person in those villages were slaughtered. And so, I get on one hand, like, the army telling people to leave, but on the other hand, people were terrified for their lives, and rightfully so.
It's like, it's effectively, what it effectively was doing was, at that point, it was kind of it was a genocide, right? That was like...
That was definitively genocide.
Yeah. And so,
absolutely.
I think...
Hey, we passed Nakba numbers now. Like, if that was a genocide, this might be a genocide, because we have passed the numbers that have happened to the Nakba.
It's very much, for me, it's like a percentage thing, I think, more than it gets into something else. But I was trying to... Hold on, where was I? What I was trying to say is that, like, just to be super clear on the Nakba, there were 3 different, like, levels of things that were going on, but they all equated to the same level of, like, ethnic cleansing, right? There was the genocide, where they just went into villages and killed them. Then the army was also clearing people out. And then, a lot of people are like, well, because this is technically the largest group, most of the villages voluntarily left. But when you hear, hey, the army's clearing people out, hey, they're murdering entire villages, like, did you really choose to leave, or were you...
Well, okay.
Yeah,
well,
you were kicked out. Yeah. I mean, and the number is about 700,000. I mean, this is not a small number, especially for those times back when the population of everything was so much smaller. Like, this is
I think you're underrepresenting the real force behind Palestinian Authority asking Palestinians to leave. I mean, the Arab Higher Committee, which was the closest thing to a Palestinian government at the time, literally announced and published to Palestinians all throughout the area, if you don't leave, you're opposing our holy war that will allow us to wipe out the Jews, and then you can have everything. That was the message.
I believe that was a message that went out, Noah. I still don't believe that that's why the majority of people left. I think the majority of people left because they feared for their lives. I think I am not going to deny the fact that, like, that was absolutely said. Yeah. But to say that people followed that advice rather than just following the gut-wrenching fear that they were going to be slaughtered in their own homes, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I
don't think anyone cared enough about the holy war over their own lives.
I think
historically it was all of the above reasons.
Yeah, I think
every single one of those reasons.
From what I've read, individual, like the primary sources of, like, people's journals or whatever you want to call it, right? Most of those people were, like, fear-based, right? So, like, I think I'm gonna have to go with it wasn't. Yeah. It was that they were scared for their lives because they heard that entire villages were getting wiped out. And you don't actually... The thing about ethnic cleansing is you don't actually have to kill that many people. You just have to make people think they're going to die, right? And they'll leave because people, don't want to die.
Yep, the massacres were calculated. They did exactly what they were intended to do, which was scare people into leaving. Because they could not have continued to massacre villages at that scale as they were doing. But the fear that it instilled in people was the main point of those massacres. And it was the main catalyst of the Nakba.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a real irony to going through a genocide, fearing a second genocide as Arab armies are coming in from every single state, and then committing your own genocide to make a Jewish...
Yeah, as you mean, you mean doing
for me to laugh at. But
you mean doing a genocide when you think you might lose a war? That seems
that also seems like a really stupid idea. That seems really dumb, doesn't it?
In the mid 1940s,
right? Yeah.
Oh my god, that's so weird. Where have I heard that one
ever
before?
think to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh no.
I'm sorry. No, I feel like we're 3v1ing Noah at this point. I'm so sorry.
No, I mean, I just.
No, I mean
just,
there is some truth. Like, yes, the Arab armies did just tell some people to leave and and come back when we're done with this. But
it wasn't just some. I mean, not just the Arab League, but literally the highest Palestinian authority. Their unilateral message was get out of our way so we can slaughter them. And this idea that it was just one side massacres is just not true. That Palestinians were massacring Jews were massacring Palestinians. It was absolutely horrible. But it wasn't. To say that it was just this one targeted group trying to wipe out all Palestinians, it's just not backed up by the evidence.
We're gonna have to definitely reconvene because I feel like the evidence we all bring to the table will be extremely interesting.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know. We gotta find the Nakba evidence because I haven't heard anything besides this. Yeah, I don't know. That's fine. We'll reconvene and we'll trade evidence because I like you're providing evidence that like I mean like I have heard the evidence, but like I feel like the weight of each of these groups of people I feel like we all have different weightings of all these groups of people, right?
And I think history especially is telling us that like certain voices had more weight than others, but like history is written by the victors and Palestine did not win. So just look critically at what went down and like what went down when. And I definitely want to like reconvene about the Nakba because I wish I had the timeline in my head, but like
I mean
that's not the way I studied it.
Yeah,
history is also not written by the victors. That's just not true. There's no basis in that.
I would actually argue that Israelis and Palestinians have been given two entirely different histories about and instead of giving both parties the full picture of what happened. Like there was something about like you can't really like they don't teach Israelis about the Nakba in Israel. They teach people growing up about the Israeli War of Independence or how there was like this one Palestinian professor, I don't remember if it was somewhere in the West Bank or if it was Jerusalem, but he tried teaching people, Palestinians about the Holocaust, and he if I remember right, he lost his job. So, I mean, this whole censoring of information to what is convenient to our narrative to push our agenda is just ridiculous. Like, people do need to find the truth and reconcile and just break bread.
Yeah.
In the long run.
I also think the biggest irony about the Nakba, well, I guess it's the second biggest because we were talking about the, genocide in the 1940s, but the second biggest irony, I guess, about the Nakba is, like, Palestinians didn't really have, like, an ethnic or national identity until Israel created Palestinians.
Oh, yeah.
Now they do exist now, but only because they were made to exist. If they were just like accepted, then they would just be Muslim Israelis.
Yep. And wasn't it all part of a greater pan-Arab identity, like back in the 1940s?
Yeah, they were all Arab back then.
But now, because Israel has oppressed them now they exist.
Or even if they had just figured out how to do the partition plan back then and just been like, yeah, we're done. There's a partition plan.
There's also an irony of like the Jews coming back to their ancestral land and then creating another set of Jews who are now the Jews of the Arab world, who are forever displaced and kicked around. I mean,
yeah, the Palestinians are the Jews.
Yep. And I mean, if we're just in like this weird repeating cycle, that's a bad sign.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. That, like I said, it's the chicken and the egg of fuckery. Okay.
That's true.
Okay. we have to wrap up so that my wife can go to sleep.
Oh my god. Hi, Aniha.
She's in the other room. She's not even in the bedroom yet. Okay. All right. I'm not doing an outro, but you guys can all do outros. All right. So again, Noah, Olivia, Oliver.
Okay, well, I don't know if I have to reiterate myself too much more. I think it's blame is so easily placed on one side when it's not that clear at all. There's been problematic actions taken all over the board, and at the end of the day, Israel and Palestine deserve to be independent states with self-determination, full rights for everyone in those states, and that's the path forward I believe in, and the way to get there requires no Likud in Israel and no Hamas in Palestine, and probably no PA either. PA has been extremely anti-democratic. They will not hold elections because they're pretty sure Hamas will win. And they praised Hamas's actions on October 7th.
No, they didn't.
They did.
I didn't hear that.
Yes.
Did
And
Okay. Let him finish his outro.
so, anyways, the PA is problematic too. But of course, I would choose the PA over Hamas. But I think there needs to be another path forward for Palestinians, and there needs to be another path forward for Israelis, not electing parties like Likud and the other far-right nationalists.
Sorry for interrupting you.
That's okay. I'm done.
Okay, yeah. I mean, obviously, we all want this most recent escalation of the conflict to end. I agree that a two-state solution has to happen first, but I think my issue with it is that I fear that a two-state solution would cause what you guys think a ceasefire would cause, which is basically just, it'll fix things a little bit now, but in the long run, it'll get so much worse. You know, and it is because that we have this hatred on both sides, and we've got these populations that do not mix except when killing each other. And I'm just going to bring it back to the point of, like, we absolutely have to rehumanize Palestinians in the eyes of not just Israelis, but in the eyes of the world. It's absolutely insane, you know, that we're this okay with this amount of civilian casualties. This is not, oh, well, casualties happen in war. This is much more than that, and I think losing sight of that is scary.
Yeah, I think genuinely there needs to be work done towards a one-state solution because, or either a one-state solution or genuine peaceful ties between these two populations, and that won't work as long as they're this separated. I think the Iron Dome needs to go down. Something larger than the Berlin Wall does not deserve to stay up. It's separating populations. Hang on, let me finish. There is literally no way there will ever be peace between these two populations if they don't ever interact past killing each other. Yeah, and I think Bibi's government needs to be overthrown. I think the Biden administration needs to call for actual regulations, stop pretending that we are calling for stricter policies with Israel when we're doing the opposite. We really need to pay attention to what America is doing on the world stage because we have been losing any chance of peace.
Okay, Oliver, take us home.
Country road. Sorry, that's so inappropriate. It's like what, 1 a.m. All right. Yeah, in the long run, I think there needs to be a two-state solution. In the super long run, I wouldn't mind seeing a one-state solution. That sounds beautiful. You know, again, right now, completely impossible. Two-state solution needs to be established for there to be even, you know, the beginning of peaceful even just peaceful interaction, friendly interaction between the populations. And that's also a key part of this. There needs to be friendly interaction between the two populations. And I think facilitating it would be a really smart idea. In fact, if we're going to talk about policies, I don't even know how you'd begin to go about that, but facilitating peaceful, friendly interaction, like literally breaking bread together. I mean, like, I remember I was watching a video of okay, I have 2 minutes. All right. Well, okay, I was watching a video of, the Saluki going to the West Bank while, as an Israeli, while there's a war. And, he meets this really cool Palestinian guy, and, the guy's telling him, he owns a farm and all this stuff. And the guy was telling him how, when he tried buying something from Israel, for his farm, at first the Israeli company was super friendly, and then when they realized he was Palestinian, they just like ghosted him. And it's like, yeah, that kind of behavior is just, that's perpetuating this, yeah, whatever happens at the end of this war, the USA absolutely needs to pressure Israel as much as humanly possible into working towards a two-state solution and doing everything that it can unilaterally without even needing a partner. Everything that it can do on its own. And, obviously, yeah, sure, pressuring Palestine to do the same thing, but you have to pressure Israel to do that first because Israel holds the cards. Yeah. Peace in Israel and Palestine. That is the long-term goal.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks so much to all of you for staying up till 1 a.m. Just because. I really appreciate it. I think you guys all had good arguments. I really appreciate that. Like, it did seem like no one came on here and didn't want people to stop killing each other. So that was always great. That's always great and wonderful. We didn't get to do the B-roll topic. For everyone at home, the B-roll topic was gonna be the two staffers that ended up getting a little frisky in Congress, but that didn't end up not being we ended up not having time. But yeah, I think for everyone at home, just remember, everyone here just wants there to be peace in the region. And if there's differences, it's mainly differences in policy, or that obviously the whole night even I got into it of just like getting at throwing sources at each other. So we either have different policy prescriptions or just haven't read the same sources. So yeah, just be respectful in the comments, or for my guests, be respectful to each other, as you will all see each other at some point in the near future. Okay, but yeah, again, thank you so much. If you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe. Yeah, love you guys. Get some sleep.
Hit the bell button.
Yeah, hit the noti bell. Exactly.
Notifications on.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Thank you for having us on, Davin. I think it was a great debate. Yeah, free Palestine. I hope there's peace soon.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
No, I definitely appreciate this. I felt like this at times. This felt like more of a discussion than a debate, and I really appreciated that. It didn't feel like I see so many of these, and in fact, I've been in so many of these conversations where people just keep trying to play these stupid games of gotcha with facts, and it's just thank you guys for not playing that game and for having a good faith conversation. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, there was a little bit of concern that there was going to be a little bit of gotcha games going on, but I was super glad that didn't happen. Yeah, and only because you guys all said you guys all read a lot of sources, so I was like, fuck, they're gonna all be like, well, I read this source. Okay, all right. I can see Noah on camera falling asleep in his chair, so we should probably all get off that.
Thank you for being a great host, Davin.
I'm trying. Thank you so much. All right. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh.